smell out there? I don't usually shoot videos in the middle of the day because I don't usually spend much time outside in the middle of the day because it's really hot. However, this morning did not allow for garden time, and I came down here for a quick peek and saw that a bunch of tomatoes that were low hanging had been attacked by some critter, and I didn't want to give them an opportunity to eat anymore. So I've got my basket. I'm about to harvest a lot of tomatoes. This may be my last really big harvest of this summer. I don't know, after looking, there's still a lot of green tomatoes. We still have a lot left to get. Really, I guess at this point it just depends on how long the plants hold out, how long they can resist the blight and sickness. So I am aware that my plants are kind of sickly. Got a good bit of hornworm damage here, some cracking. Overall, this is what is pretty normal for the garden by mid-July. But a lot of you have asked to see the variety of plants that we have. So I'm just gonna take you through and we're gonna harvest all these tomatoes. Okay, so this is the Creole tomato. These are on the small side. I've gotten several that are more in like the 8-ounce range, and I really like this one. This is my first year growing it, and I will definitely grow it again. They're all very uniform. They have really small cores, and they haven't cracked nearly as much as a lot of the bigger slicers. So these are really good for putting up. I take tomatoes and I cut the core out and then just slice a little X on the bottom of them, scoring the skin, and then put them in freezer bags and freeze them. And then when they thaw out, the skins slip right off, and then you can go on and process them, turn them into sauce or salsa, and then can them. They're no good for eating fresh after that. They get slimy and stuff. But if you are overwhelmed by a harvest and you don't know what to do with it, you don't have enough time to can them, dice them, and all of that, it's a great way to go ahead and preserve them until a rainy day or until after the peak part of summer is over and you've got a little more time in the kitchen. Another thing that's really cool about that, if you have done much processing of tomatoes, the process of boiling them to get the skins off and then putting them in ice water, it's kind of a pain in the butt, and this completely alleviates that because the skins slip right off after they've been frozen. And I haven't noticed that it affects the flavor at all. That's how I did all of my diced tomatoes that I put up last year, and it was really nice. So as you can see, some of these plants are looking kind of rough. This is what I came out to a lot of this morning, which was a bummer. I gave about a half of a 5-gallon bucket of fruit that looked like this to my chickens. So these are the Get Stuffed tomatoes from Baker Creek. This was a new one in their catalog this year, and they're obviously really pretty. I've eaten a few of these fresh, and they're actually kind of weird, to be completely honest. They're okay. I like meaty tomatoes. So check out the inside of this guy. Isn't that crazy? It looks like a brain. That's actually just the pulp and the seeds. See? Weird, huh? This is a stuffing tomato. So it's shaped more like a bell pepper. These little pockets are weird. Isn't that so strange? They all look like that. Every little section of tomato has a little brain section of gel. The flesh of these doesn't have very much flavor. I have not tried stuffing any of them because I haven't gotten just a whole lot. I've only had about 6 ripe on the plant, and it's probably got another 15 fruits on it. So, you know, it just depends on what you're wanting to do with them. The gel has a really good tomato flavor. The only issue is if the point of this tomato is to grow it to scrape the gel out and stuff it, I don't know exactly what the point of that would be. The flesh is kind of mealy. Okay, so this is the vintage wine. Also introduced new to Baker Creek this year, and none of these have gotten super large either, and they have a really just average flavor. They have not been amazing to me, but they're really pretty. This is one I would probably grow again because it's good enough and it's beautiful. Now here is the Black Beauty. Obviously a lot of fruit on 2 different plants here. Now, the Black Beauty is kind of got a good bit of cat facing, as typical of it, but like this is probably a 12-ounce fruit. They can get darker than this. They typically turn purple where the sun touches them, And I really like this one. I've grown this tomato for about 4 years, and it's got a really good flavor. It's slightly acidic. It makes a good tomato sandwich, and it's just beautiful. This one, it just adds a really special kick to the tomato basket, and most people have never seen anything like it before, so I do really suggest Black Beauty. I like it. The sizes can be pretty erratic. Like, you get some really big ones like that, but most of them are more along the lines of these kind of medium globe types. Now this is a big rainbow, and this is a really great tomato. I love big rainbow. Another one I've grown for years. It has a lot of streaking when you cut it open. It's got a really neat color, good flavor. And here is the Wapsipinicon Peach. This is my first year to grow this. It's got like a fuzzy skin, and it's very yellow. I like these. I like these more than I thought I was going to. Sorry about the light. It is like super bright out here, and then there are some kind of storm clouds flirting with blowing over. I wouldn't mind if they did. Last year I grew a tomato called Peach Below Sutton, and it was very similar to that Get Stuffed, like really thin walled and then very hollow inside. And I wasn't super impressed. Just had a ton of gel, and I was just like, I don't really know what to do with this. I like tomatoes that are versatile enough that if I'm overwhelmed by them, I can freeze them and dice them and can them that way, that I can make salsa out of them. And so this tomato, the Wapsipinicon Peach, has impressed me. I actually had one that made it into the house and I didn't know what it was, and I ate it in the house when the kids had picked it, and I liked it so much that I had to come down here and figure it out. It's just got the slightest fuzz on the skin, and though it has a good deal of gel inside of it, it is still a little more substantial, and it's really sweet. It's really good. I like yellow tomatoes. They're typically lower acid, which means that when you can them, someone asked me this, they're like, can you can those the same? You just have to make sure that you add acid, like lemon juice or citric acid, and it's really good practice to do that anyway, even if you're canning red tomatoes, but you definitely want to make sure you do that whenever you're canning yellow tomatoes. But I just like the way they taste, and I really like the Wapsipinicon Peach. I'll definitely grow this one again too. Next to that, I've got this Brad's Black Heart, which is one that was developed by Brad Gates over at Wild Boar Farms. Wow, that plant just fell. This one grew like wedged in there. That's kind of funky, huh? And I have not eaten any of these yet, but I'm assuming this is going to be a lot like any other ox heart type tomato. Real meaty, low seeds, very similar to that Italian heirloom. These are great for making sauce and paste. They're called paste tomatoes for that reason. This is Japanese Black Trifele, which I have a few of these. I grew this on a suggestion from Luke from MIGardener. He said that this was a really great tomato to grow, and I've been pleased with it. I'll grow it again. Also, high meat, low seeds, and good flavor. I've liked this one a lot. I've got another plant over on the other side of the garden that's produced a ton. This one's really just starting to pick up, but it's got some pretty good sized tomatoes on there. They're very interesting shaped. So this tomato is called Stump of the World. It's a potato leaf variety, as you can see. Kind of starting to get pretty sickly, but it's kind of still holding its own. I thought I was about done harvesting huge tomatoes. Usually that first set of fruit that they set are massive, and then they kind of regulate a little bit, but that's a pretty big tomato right there. That's kind of nice to look forward to. Here's another vintage wine plant. I did try when I planted multiples of varieties to plant them near each other, but it didn't entirely work out that way. There's another one. Dang chickens. And here, another Stump of the World that got separated from the first one. Aw, a little heart. How sweet is that? I love you too, Stump of the World. Now these seeds I got from a swap, and I actually was told that it was a much larger variety. It's called Gardener's Sweetheart. But of the two plants that I have, they've all turned out to be this size. So very much like a saladette size. Don't know that I'll grow this one again. It's okay. This size is just not very versatile to me. But it is a cute little tomato, don't you think? Now here is the Cherokee Rose. Which is the one that's developed off of a mutation from Cherokee Purple. And as you can see, these do not look like the other ones that I've harvested. Like here's another one that's super matte skin. They're ripening to a very interesting purpley pink. And these look fairly normal, somewhat shiny, kind of a different size. Now, whenever you're buying tomato seeds from a breeder like Brad Gates Wild Boar Farms, and you know, you have these options of all of these like really cool, streaky, interesting, the black tomatoes, the purples, the stripes. Basically, Brad is breeding those. He is hybridizing those, and it's not the same as whenever you read all the articles and people talk about the negatives of hybrids and then GMOs, which are a completely different thing. Hybrids are not bad in and of themselves. It's just a cross. What happens sometimes, you'll notice, whenever you're growing these newish varieties, like this is the first year that this Cherokee Rose has been available to the public, you get a lot of variation on the plant. You get a lot of different sizes. You end up with some cat facing. Like this is very random, this one little cluster of these very red, smallish tomatoes. It's nothing like what else has been produced on this plant, which is cool. I don't mind. It does have a little bit of the matte skin, and I think that that's interesting, but it is something that's good to know whenever you're planting these plants. If you're wanting something really uniform, varieties that have been being grown for a while are going to produce that a little bit more than things that have been developed more recently. The flavor on these has been really good though. I've enjoyed them and I'll grow them again. Here's Kellogg's Breakfast, which is a favorite of mine. This one's kind of wonky. I need to cut that off. Kellogg's Breakfast produces really good sized fruit, really good flavor, very typical of a yellow orange variety. Down here is a variety called Amana Orange, and my experience with it is that it's been very similar to the Kellogg's Breakfast. Pretty uniform, pretty good sized fruits, very good flavor, nice, mild, low acid. Look at that funky little one. This Amana Orange. It's funny. Here's a climbing triple crop. This one's split, so that'll go to the chickens. But climbing triple crop produces mostly uniform fruit. These are splitting too, but it looks like it just happened when I grabbed hold of it. So I'm going to take that in the house and just eat it right away. Down here I've got quite a lot of Paul Robesons. One of my all-time favorites. Great tasting tomato. Pretty good producer. Lovely flavor. Relatively uniform. This is always one of my must grows. Ideally, whenever you're harvesting a bunch of tomatoes, it's best to put them in a single layer, like if you have boxes or something that you can come and lay them in. But, you know, I've got this big basket. What I usually do is I take them in my house and I lay them out on a flat layer on my table. And that way you don't get any, like they'll damage each other, poking each other with the stems, and it's just better to do that so they don't get bruised. That was a pretty hefty haul of Pauls there. You do see me stacking them up in here, but I don't leave them that way when I get in the house. Look, I got another heart. Isn't that cute? I'm gonna go ahead and grab that one. He's pretty close. Paul Robeson is a purple variety, so the shoulders stay relatively green even when it's very ripe. So this is Aunt Ruby's German Green, and I actually goofed on this. I didn't realize that's what this plant was, and I did not check this to see if it was ripe. With green tomatoes, you really kind of have to squeeze them to know, and so that got way too ripe on the vine, so the chickens get that one too. This one's just called Pink Ox Heart. Very meaty. I've gotten some massive ones of these as well, but most of them are more on the, you know, 7 or 8 ounce size. Here is a Thessoloniki. This one's done really well. Very pretty, hasn't cracked a lot, hasn't cat-faced a lot. Even some of the bigger ones, they look really good. And it's just got a really typical red tomato flavor. I honestly just grew that one because of the name. I liked it. Here's a random Dr. Wyches right here. This is the plant that produced that 22 ounce tomato that I had. This one was cat-faced, and that's why half of it is ripe and half of it is not, so I'll have to give that some time on the counter. Usually if I've got a cat-faced one like this and it's ripening uneven, I go ahead and pick it, because a lot of times by the time this half is ripe out here, this one is rotting because of the heat. Here's Missouri Pink Love Apple. This has been a new introduction to my garden this year. And I got the seeds at Baker Creek, and I grew it because if it was developed in Missouri, I figured it would do pretty well here in Arkansas. As far as the fruit production, it's been really good. It's produced a fair amount of fruit, and they've all been pretty good size. Man, my tomatoes are just loving me today. Look at all these hearts. However, the plant is looking really sick. So we'll see how this holds up over the course of the next week. That's getting heavy. Here is Black from Tula. And this may very well be this tomato's last chance in my garden. I grew it the first year, 3 years ago, and it was okay, but I always got it mixed up with some of the other ones, and so I wasn't 100% sure. Like, I was expecting like a big, like Paul Robeson, like a big dark purpley tomato with a name like Black from Tula. I just thought it was gonna have a lot of depth to it and darkness to it, and it really doesn't. And so I grew it again last year, and it grew just like this, and I thought I'd gotten the seeds mixed up. I thought, surely this isn't right. And so I made sure I got seeds from a different place this year. I got these from Baker Creek. Last year I'd gotten them in a swap. And the plant's huge. It's taller than all the rest, but it's just produced like a handful of these meh tomatoes. Have you had good experience with Black from Tula? I've heard it suggested multiple times, so I keep trying. But I don't know, I'm very underwhelmed by that. So this one's called Gold Medal, and it is beautiful. But almost all of the fruit has been really, like, weird. It's had little funky spots like this, which in the case of this tomato, like this top part is really soft because it probably started ripening first. As you can see here, there's a little weird deformed one. It's beautiful. A lot of cool streaks to it, and it tastes good. But I've only gotten a few, and every one of them has been like this. I haven't got a single just like normally formed tomato off of this. The plant's not super tall. Right now it's just got one more left on it, so I don't know if I'm gonna do the Gold Medal again. This plant I have labeled as chocolate marmalade. These seeds came from a swap. I have no idea what they are, but if this is what's supposed to be called chocolate marmalade, I think that's a very strange thing to name it. They're very much yellow tomatoes. So I'm not really sure what's going on here. Maybe a little mix up, clerical error. Could have been on my part, could have been on someone else's. These are okay, but I just don't know. And here I have my orange Roussollini from MIGardener. This is the tomato I shared about this when I started the seeds, that when I watched Luke first make the video about these years ago before I had YouTube, I felt so validated in my excitement for food, for growing food. He was so pumped about this tomato that I was like, yes, I'm not the only one. They're good. I haven't dried any of them yet, and he told me these are drying tomatoes and they really shine when they're dried. But as far as just eating, they're good, sweet little cherries. I planted the plants late, and so they're much smaller than the rest, and I haven't gotten a lot off of them yet. And I'm hoping that I get a pretty good harvest off of them before they, before the heat is too much for them. Here is black Krim, and as you can see, I need to cut that off. It's not letting go. I think I hear rain coming. Crud. Oh God. Oh my goodness. Well, at least I harvested all these before they came and got poured on and split. We actually haven't roofed our pavilion yet, so the water is dripping in, but there was no way I was gonna make it to the house by the time I heard it. It was so heavy. And I could see the goats running on the other side of the property trying to get to the barn. So I knew I didn't have time. That's okay, it's blowing over quick. 5 minutes later and the sun is blaring again. And the rain has stopped, so welcome to Arkansas. Let's return to the task at hand. I was talking about black Krim. Basically, I threw them in the basket when the rain started coming. Basically, black Krim is what I had hoped Black from Tula would be. Good size, good flavor, kind of more in the vein of Paul Robeson. So this is one that I've grown for a while and I really like. And it's becoming more mainstream as far as heirloom tomatoes that people know about. Here's Arkansas Traveler. Some of these are on the smallish side, but most of them are in this vein, kind of like a really uniform globe. Arkansas Traveler is not like wildly special to me. It's a good tomato, but it's not like spectacular, you know? I mean, some of them are just so good. But I start plants in the spring and I sell plant starts at a couple of sales, and being from Arkansas, it never fails that people say, do you have Arkansas Traveler? It's just one of the more known ones here. And so I start it and grow like one plant every year, and it does well. I mean, that's a handful of tomatoes from a plant, but they're just not my favorite. They just don't wow me. I don't think there's anything like super special about them. Here is black brandywine, and then my regular brandywine plant. It doesn't have anything ripe on it right now. Both of these plants are sick. Brandywine usually gets sick before the rest, but this was my granddaddy's favorite tomato to grow, so I grow it. It is a good one. It's always very, very good. And so I always grow it. It's like an old trusty. Here's Amish Paste, another one that I've just grown for a long time. This year I don't have any monsters. Last year I had some 2-pound Amish Paste, but this year they've all been relatively normal. Down here on the end, I've got Dr. Wyches and Paul Robeson. These were the first plants that went in. We planted these a couple weeks before the rest, so I've harvested a lot off of these. This doctor plant has produced 4 tomatoes that were all over 18 ounces each. So that was crazy. And then it's produced several other smaller ones. And then this incredibly deformed thing that I knew wasn't going to be worth much whenever I saw it developing, but I was really just curious to see what would happen here. That's like 4 tomatoes fused together. Maybe 5 actually. Isn't that crazy? I need a new basket. Oh goodness, that is heavy. That rain shower managed to cool the garden down for about 3 minutes, and now it's just so humid you could swim. All right, backup basket. So let's grab these Paul Robesons. Looky there. Oh, I need to cut him. Now, I've gotten my fair share of heart-shaped tomatoes, but I think this is the most I've ever gotten in one day. There's another heart that isn't ripe yet. Okay, let's go over to these other rows. I have been waiting to harvest this big cluster on this climbing triple crop because I wanted to have a total weight from this plant. And I came out this morning and the 4 that were hanging on the bottom down there were all hollowed out by, I think it was the chickens that got into the garden. So that was a bummer. So I'm just going to pick those because at this point I'm not going to know the total weight. This is one very productive plant. It's been a difficult year as far as issues in the garden. I just got stung by a wasp on my hands and it hurt. Let's see what's going on over there, if there's a wasp nest or what. Do not want to hang out in that spot right now though. So I tried to give the wasp time to chill out, but I see it. It just flew in front of me and I'm kind of scared. I need to at least get my basket over there. Okay, I'm sneaking up from the other side. I don't know if there's like a wasp nest somewhere. Alright, back to the climbing triple crop. Lots of fruits, probably close to 1 pound each. And overall, this is a great plant. I have grown it, this is my 2nd year, and I will always grow it. Everybody that's tried it, I've gotten a lot of great reviews. People have really enjoyed it. It's done really well for them. So I'm about to pick all of these off of here. These are also Amish pastes. It's a little on the underdone side, but I'm going to go ahead and grab it. As you can see, quite a bit of size variation here. But this is a really good, faithful producer. Here's that other gardener's sweetheart plant that I was telling y'all about. It's just made for really small tomatoes. This basket's looking very red. Not usually the case. I've grown a lot of orange tomatoes this year. Maybe the reds were just late to the party. There's an orange, another Dr. Wyches. I'm waiting on these beefsteaks here to finish turning. These are a few more of my really huge tomatoes. These are probably close to 2 pounds there. They're just starting to blush, so I'm really eager to see how much they weigh. Now this is an interesting tomato. I'm on the other side because I don't want to get stung by a wasp again. This is called Thornburn's Terra, and this was one that Baker Creek had this year that I thought was really, really pretty. It's just a very, really like dark orange terracotta colored tomato, and I really like it. Now I planted this in last, and so I'm not getting just a ton off of these yet. They're just starting to show up. I've got a lot of green tomatoes here, so I don't really have anything to harvest here right now. And of course I've got tons of cherry tomatoes, but I usually, my kids pick those, so I'm not gonna pick any of those. Look at my silly dog. All right, Bear, you ready to take this harvest in? Now, it's obviously gonna take me both hands to get all of these tomatoes in the house, and then it's gonna take the afternoon doing something with it. First things first though, I will weigh them, and I'll put a total weight of what we harvested today up on the screen right here during editing, so you know how many pounds just came out of the garden. I've already had about 4 or 5 hauls of this size, and I probably have a few left, and then, you know, just they'll peter in. They kind of slows down and peters in as the plants really start to struggle with the heat. I always enjoy a nice tomato sandwich on the end of tomato harvests like this before I get started with putting them in the freezer, canning them, or whatever it is I'm gonna do. So thank y'all for hanging out with me today, and I bless you. Until next time. Look, I have a backup helping me into the house. What a gentleman I'm raising.